Welcome everyone to Dead Talk Live, and as you can see, we have a full house. Missing one person, Lydell. There's Lydell. Hey, Lydell. Welcome, Lydell. We have the cast and crew of Not Alone joining us today. Sarah and Steve Schroeder Matskin, Pat Healy, Megan Ashley Brown, and writer-director Lydell Jackson. Welcome, guys. How's everyone doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
Great.
I want to just welcome you all. Thank you for coming on the show. The movie Not Alone is available on Screambox for watching right now. It's a great paranormal film written and directed by Lydell, at least co-written, right, Lydell? Why don't you tell us the backstory of how you came up with this story and you co-wrote it with somebody else. Is that accurate? Lydell?
I think he wrote in the little box that he was having issues hearing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay, all right.
So I'll say something, John. So we have really good news today. But while Lydell gets his the mic maybe going, see, that's why I did the test. I know
Sarah's prepared.
I'm a paranoid producer. So anyway, I will tell you guys, today we are on Amazon, Apple. These are all transactional. Google Play, iTunes, and Vudu, and also Apple, if I didn't say that already. So that's awesome. This is great that we're doing this.
Congratulations. So not only are you on Screambox, you're on all the major transactional video on demand services.
Yes.
That is awesome. And that is of starting today?
Just today. That's why I was so happy that we were doing the interview. I was going to tell everybody. I'm going to post it, but I didn't want to interfere with the interview. And I love it. Megan and Pat, Lydell, everybody share, please.
Mm-hmm. That is such great news. And while we wait for Lydell to fix his issues, Pat, you have been, in films for a long, long time now. Why don't you tell us how you got involved with Not Alone and how you were brought in, basically?
Well, I became friends with Steve and Sarah, and I liked them a lot. We spent some personal time together, and then they had this project, and it was like they offered me the part of a normal person, for which no one ever does. Well, people that know me offer me those roles, but people that don't tend to offer me somebody who's crazy or something. So that was super appealing. And then it was, I've done some things in and around this genre, so that was familiar. But I just kind of wanted to, after I met them, I met Cecil and Lydell, and I really liked them, and I just liked the project. So it was, a month in Florida in late spring, early summer. So that's basically how it happened. Just friends and wanting to work together and doing something fun and not acting like a maniac for a month.
It's a good change of pace. Now, Sarah, not only do you play Pat's wife in the movie, is that accurate?
Yes, Shelley.
You're also an executive producer, correct?
Yes. Well, mainly producer, but Steve did the heavy lifting on the set. I was too busy being in pretty much every scene, so it was tough, 19-day shoot, and so I was trying to produce when I wasn't acting, but my acting was first. That was for sure. We had that all laid out up front, and Steve would take that role.
And Steve, what was it like producing with your wife in front of the camera, and was that odd at all? Have you guys done that before?
I've never produced with Sarah in front of the camera. I've EP'd with her in front of the camera. But no, that wasn't really weird. I mean, she was so good that I didn't even recognize her as Sarah. So I just like I was producing Shelley. So, that wasn't a problem at all.
Now,
and we were doing it in our home. That was kind of
the problem was shooting in your house.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, you're right, Pat.
That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
And that is an interesting story that Sarah did share with me. Now, Megan You play the character of Jess. So why don't you give us some background on what your character is about in Not Alone?
Mhm. Yeah, so Jess Lawson is Shelly, and I honestly, Pat, I think I forgot your character's name in this movie.
Walter.
Yes,
Walter. Oh my
Walter.
gosh, I'm a
Such
fake
a
fan. I'm
normal name.
sorry. No, so she's the daughter of Pat and Sarah's character, and she has cystic fibrosis, and I think throughout the movie you kind of see different ways that she deals with that and things that she has to go through, which was very interesting to learn about and play and try to bring, justice to people in real life that do have cystic fibrosis. Yeah, and she's just like a fun 16-year-old girl with bright pink hair.
And Megan, this is not your first brush with the paranormal movie. People might recognize you. You were in The Conjuring 3. You
Yes,
played young Elaine Warren
yes.
in those flashback scenes. So, I mean, now the Conjuring franchise is this huge, big budget franchise. Not Alone is more of a smaller budget. What would you say, like, is like the biggest difference in like the budgeting of these two films? As an actor, what is like, wow, you notice it right away as soon as you walk on set?
Honestly, like from an actor's perspective, like it's kind of like I feel like not the best answer, but honestly, you just can tell when sets have more money because they're bigger, there's more trailers, there's more people, there's more crew, and like all of that. But the actual work that you do yourself as an actor like doesn't change. At least not for me, it doesn't.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Now, Pat, you have had your brushes with horror now for a long time. Uh, you have done horror in and out of your career. Uh, do you have a special place in your heart for the horror genre?
I do. I mean, I grew up just loving movies, and I still do. I mean, that's cinema. That's my main passion in life. You could say it is my life. But so I love all genres. But yeah, I grew up, with the first movies that I saw. Some of the first movies I saw were the Universal monster movies on broadcast television when we didn't even have a color television for,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, the first several years of my life. So a lot of those movies were in black and white anyway, and I enjoyed them that way. And then I started to get really scared of movies when I was an adolescent. Well, like 10, 11. And that was when movies like Poltergeist and John Carpenter's The Thing were out, and movies were on video like Dawn of the Dead, the
Yeah.
original Dawn of the Dead, the Romero one, and Alien, things like that. And so I had to kind of steel up my courage to. I was frightened of those movies, and I had a weak stomach. I know it's hard to believe, but I made myself get comfortable and like those movies, and now I really love those movies. And now you can see from my work that I've gone so far out the other end of that I'm just like, it's out of control. So, but it was sort of like, being afraid of lightning when you're a kid. You got to count till 10, and every time it gets further and further away. And that was like, I just had to expose myself to those movies, even though I was afraid of them, and they made me sick to my stomach. And now I love them.
And for those people who didn't pick it up, that's a Poltergeist reference from the movie.
It is.
I'm
That was
sure
unintentional,
unintentional, but it
yes,
is. It
sure.
made me think of
Yeah,
that. Now,
yeah.
Sarah, when people read the synopsis of Not Alone, it's very short and it just looks like another haunted house movie. So tell us how Not Alone differentiates itself from other haunted house movies.
Well, have you had a chance to watch it,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay, great. So then for me, the reason I loved the script was because there was a twist. Kind of like Pat and Megan, I think we all felt this way. It starts out like a haunted house, and then I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but there's like a really big twist that you're not expecting, and the reference to Poltergeist, and I don't want to give too much away, but the Poltergeist reference, and then also I could say, then there maybe a little bit of Shape of Water comes into there. So, I mean, I'm trying not to give too much away, but that's what most people have said about the movie is that they love the twist and they didn't see it coming. And
Well-
so that's what I would say. And then Poltergeist reference also is Dr. Clay, who is played by Richard Lawson, who was
Mhm.
in Poltergeist. So I thought that's maybe why Pat said that, but it's also very iconic that he was in our movie, and then there's a lot of similar situations.
Exactly. And staying on Sarah for a bit, now you're also a singer and you contributed 2 tracks to the score of this film. Is that accurate?
I'm actually just one track to the score.
Wow. I mean, so
Yeah, but Steve
produce.
actually wrote the song, and then I sang just the song in the end credits.
That's awesome. Now, Megan, when you auditioned, I assume for the role, did you know that this was a haunted house film? What kind of information did you get? Lydell, are you with us?
I'm back.
Hey, Lydell
Hey!
is with us. So, Megan, how did the audition process go? How much information was given to you? Did you know what you were walking into?
So no, I didn't know a whole lot about it because I didn't get the full script, which oftentimes as an actor you don't always get the full script. So I just got like my 2 or 3 scenes that I was auditioning with, and then kind of just like a small synopsis about like family moving into a home, and then there's weird things that start happening to them, and like that's pretty much it. So yeah, that was kind of all I was given, but I love horror movies and everything kind of in that realm. So once I found out that I got the role and my agent was telling me about it, I just got so insanely excited. And yeah, it kind of continued throughout filming.
That's so cool. Now that we have Lydell with us, the writer and director, we can get to some of the nitty gritty stuff. So,
Oh.
Lydell, before you cut out earlier, I was asking you what was your inspiration to writing a haunted house horror flick, but adding the special twist that Sarah referenced a few moments ago. Tell us the inspiration behind that.
Okay, so when it came to where to begin the story? For me, I feel like the story is like goes years and years back. But essentially, Steve had offered my partner and I at the time an opportunity to make a feature, but one of the key factors was that it had to be primarily a single location kind of deal,
Okay.
you know. And so he actually happened to have this beautiful piece of property out in Tampa. And I'm pretty sure it's probably the biggest house in Tampa.
No,
So, you know, my partner and I, we've been genre guys from the beginning of our filmmaking days. And, you know, because we're in genre, we're thinking horror by default.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, all right, what can we do? We could do a ghost story. But how do you flip it on its head?
Exactly.
And us, we're kind of like, you know, we had this idea of genre bending. That's kind of just our style to begin with, you know. So like the first script that we wrote that actually gave us the opportunity to meet Steve and Sarah was we wrote a horror comedy,
Okay.
you know. So every time, and now this one's a horror sci-fi. So we're always trying to think of ways to kind of flip genres. And at the time, you know, we were really into haunted house stories. We're thinking of haunted houses, but we're also into, you know, sci-fi. So we're thinking, well, how do you blend those two? And so the idea of, without giving, you know,
Too much away.
too much away, that's kind of where it began. And I like to think it's because of that restriction of a single location.
Yeah.
You know, I think maybe that's where it began.
Well, that can also be very helpful. Obviously, it's great for budgeting. Shooting all at a single location, you don't have to worry that much about picking up equipment, moving to different locations. But what did you do to avoid falling into the stereotypical tropes of a typical haunted house movie?
I think, for us, because there's a little bit of there's some tricks in there, some twists. You kind of go along with it, knowing that that's not the case. It's what you see is not quite what you get or what you're getting. And I think just having that little seed of information when you're weaving the picture together, you just kind of find it, because you have to lean into the trope a little bit,
Yeah,
but not too much, And
gotcha.
but I think just knowing that you're playing with it, you're innately going to do it. At least I think that's what
Absolutely.
happens.
Now, Pat, like we said, you and Sarah play a married couple. Is this the first time you're working with Sarah?
Yeah. We had met actually because I'm a writer and a director as well. I had met them just over to discuss a script ostensibly, but I don't know, we barely talked about that. We ended up just really liking each other, and Steve is from Chicago, as am I, and so we had that in common, and we just got along really well. And I think they were just sort of gearing up to do this, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know, you could ask them. I think they kind of went home and were like, oh, what about him for it? I think it's something like that. I mean, they'd have to speak to that. So, yeah, it's kind of how that happened. It really just was like a byproduct of something else, which is often the case, I guess, in the business.
Now, Sarah, how would you describe the chemistry with you and Pat that you guys brought onto the screen, off the screen, where you guys got along very well, and that translated to what we saw in front of the camera as well?
Well, I will say yes. The minute we met Pat, we were discussing a different script, and it was a person from Gersh, his agency, Jay Cohen, actually introduced us, and we went to discuss a different script. And literally, I sat there, and we must have stayed probably, I think, Pat, 3 hours.
It was like 3 hours, yeah.
It was like 3 hours.
Yeah,
And
we got pretty
like you
tanked,
said,
I think.
yeah, we had some drinks, had some fun, and
Yeah.
we really just got along. And when we were done and we went home, I said, I think we should offer Pat the role of Walter. I mean, he's awesome. And he not only writes, he's directed. He'd be incredible. And Steve was like, I was thinking the same thing. Our brains are connected most of the time. And I have to tell you, I was so pleasantly pleased and blessed that Pat was there, because he's been on so many sets, and he's directed, and for me, I'd had a lot of smaller roles, and that's great, but this was a lead, and I can thank Liddell and Cecil for that too. But right now I'm talking about Pat. He was great to have on set because he was such a pro, and I sometimes need a little guidance, and he'd be like, okay, we're going to do this. I'm like, oh, I got that. So anyway, I really learned a lot from Pat.
Awesome. Now, Megan, when you get on a set, and like with Pat and Sarah and Steve, people that have all this experience both in front and behind the camera, are you like a sponge just trying to learn as much as you can beyond what you already know?
I think definitely, yeah. I have been doing it since I was younger, so I've been able and very blessed to have worked on quite a few things and already had known some coming into this. But I think that every time you work on a set, it is always just an insane learning experience, because every set is always going to be different and different things are always going to happen. So yeah, it's quite fascinating. I always get so entertained by, I don't know why this fascinates me, but lighting is so specific for movies, and especially horror films. And I just kind of love learning about it and talking to the gaffers every time that I'm on sets and everything. But yeah.
So, I mean, staying on horror, before you did your first horror movie, whatever that may have been, I know you were in The Conjuring and this one. Are you a fan of horror in movies when you're at home and you're just on the couch watching TV? Would you watch a horror movie or would you skip over it?
So horror is pretty much like the only thing I really watch. I
That's
probably
awesome.
should broaden what I watch and watch other things, but my go-to is always just to put on some sort of horror movie, which is interesting because as a kid, obviously, I hated them. They terrified me. But my mother loves horror movies. My grandmother loves horror movies. It kind of just is like fallen down the line of women on my mom's side of the family. But yeah, it's what I watch all the time. My roommate doesn't love horror, which is
Oh
funny because
boy.
she also works in horror. But
Now, Lydell, you mentioned the whole aspect of genre writing. Now that you guys have written, directed Not Alone, and I don't know what other horror writing you have done, but would you say horror is your favorite genre to write for?
My favorite to write for. I think I had a discovery about myself because I think everything that we'd written, Cecil and I, we'd written when we were uh, working together, had always had, no matter how serious it was, there's always some undertone of humor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I came to the realization that I'm a comedy guy.
Oh,
Uh, Maybe. That's where I'm at right now, though. I'm like, oh, I think that's really the most universal thing is like laughter, I think. And so it's like, I think if you could just, it doesn't matter what clothes you put on it. And I think naturally we kind of lean in that direction. Um, Had you asked me most days, I'd probably say drama, actually.
okay. Well, that's very good to know. Now, Pat, you, like I've mentioned, you have done a wide spectrum of characters. When you get a role like this one, playing Walter or whatever, uh, in another a drama, a comedy, how do you get into character? Okay, you've been doing this for a while. Every actor has their own technique. Okay, so to use Walter as an example, what did you do to get into character to play Walter in Not Alone?
Well, the base, the core of everything, where everything starts, is the script. So that's the Bible, and everything is in there, and it's really just it begins with just reading it over and over and over again, and you start to get a sense of. I'll start to get a sense of the character pretty quickly. I mean, if I don't right away, I won't do the project because I don't have anything to bring from it or take from it. But you start to get ideas right away. I start to sort of see it almost like a movie playing out before me um, as I'm reading it. And then gradually it starts to inhabit me. And it will, I mean, other people could probably speak to this more than I could. It will start to affect me in unconscious ways before I'm sort of making conscious choices about things. So
Wow.
I'll find that I'm acting in different, behaving, and sometimes it's very subtle. Like in this case, in many ways, this character was closer to me, or something like the Innkeepers. That's very close to who I am. So I won't say that I don't do a lot of work because I do, because there are all kinds of emotions and things to explore. But I feel like if you follow the material, which you will like, if you're doing the movie, you like the material, then it's just sort of like playing the beats or playing the action of the character. The character just starts to happen, and I can't often explain it. Sometimes I'll get an idea, like for say there's an accent. I had to do an accent in a movie this summer, or you get wardrobe is a certain thing. Like I thought that costumes were very good and very specific on this. The kind of glasses that I wore,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that the way I colored my hair, it just starts to lend itself to a certain person that maybe I've seen or I'm familiar with. But it always is me.
Exactly.
It's just that something like this is I think probably closer to me than, he's a little silly and a little uptight and kind of feels sort of powerless. Not unlike the father in Poltergeist. Not to keep talking about that, but that is kind of a touchstone. It's sort of like that feeling of like not being able to protect your family. I mean, I don't have my own family, but I can imagine that as being something pretty, scary and horrific. But
Craig Nelson
Lydell
was amazing as the dad in
yeah,
Poltergeist.
amazing,
Yeah.
right? But like Lydell was saying, like there was always like humor in this, so there were always jokes. I mean, I don't really go for too much stuff that doesn't have some kind of levity to it, and it had that, and the character is funny too, which I don't want to toot my own horn, but these guys would probably tell you that it's probably one of my main characteristics.
Now, you mentioned something interesting. You said you would not take a role unless you can bring something to the role or take something away from the role. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I actually say both. I think both things need to be true. I mean, I need to go like read that and go like, top of the spectrum is like, I'm the person to do this role. I'm the only one that can play this. I have to play this part. This is, I get this. Another, lesser version of that might just be like, I think I know how to do this. Sometimes I feel like it's something that's scary or intimidating, but there's something about it that I feel like, okay, I have something that I can bring to this. Sometimes I don't like to admit that I have something to bring to something because, some of the characters I played are a little unsavory, but I understand them. Taking something from it, I don't want to do something that isn't an edifying experience for me. It isn't creatively satisfying, artistically satisfying. Or maybe sometimes it's just like you have fun or you work with great people. Sometimes you don't have fun, but you make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I really I would prefer it to be a creatively satisfying experience. In other words, the taking something from it just means like the next thing I do, I will have learned something that I can bring to that next.
Yeah, and that holds true for almost every actor that I've spoken to.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you got to be proud and happy with the work that you do as well. Now, Steve, when Lydell brought you the script, okay, of Not Alone, the final draft, and you read it, do you often find yourselves when you're producing working closely with the writers on any possible rewrites that may need to be done?
Yeah. And I did work with, and so did Sarah. We both worked with Lydell and Cecil and modified the script that we were all comfortable with. So it wasn't like, you have to change this, you have to change this. We discussed things, we discussed other possibilities, and when we all agreed, that's what ended up on the paper.
Awesome. Now, Sarah, in the time that we've been talking, and this is a compliment, you are a very focused, detail-oriented person. So when you have, like in Not Alone, the big job of being one of the leads in the film, is all your concentration in on your acting, even though you are also a producer on the film as well?
I felt with Not Alone, and Pat and Megan and probably can tell you, is Shelley had a lot of character flaws, and she starts out, she's helping, she's excited about moving to this house. So her arc very up and down. So for me, I really had to focus on the acting. And there's scenes where her daughter's in the hospital, and I don't want to give too much away, but it was a rough day for me. So I felt like I was very focused on the acting. The producing, I had already hired people that were going to do that. So my job was on the acting. I'm actually a very fun social person. I like to hang, be groovy. But when I was playing Shelley, I didn't really talk that much. I mean, I talked to Pat some because we were on a lot of teams and we were close and the chemistry was there. But I kind of stayed in my lane, to be honest. Tried to be in character because Shelley was not always having a fun time. She was stressed. She was worried about her family. She was worried this guy is going to kill her family. I mean, she had a sick daughter. You know, when you have a sick daughter, you're devastated. So, and I don't have children, but I was an aunt at 6. So I have so many nieces and nephews that, you know, a sick child is just the worst. So for me, I really focused on that to answer your question. And I when I had to produce, I'd step in if there was something really going bizarre. But for 99% of it, I was Shelley the whole time through.
Okay, that's a great answer. Now, Megan, let's talk about Lydell as if Lydell's not here. Okay, so just ignore him on the screen.
Okay.
Working with Lydell, how important is it to you for a director to allow you to sort of make a character your own, so it can at the end be more authentic, more true to what you think that character should be?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's very, very important. I think in this scenario, it was also kind of like a best of both worlds situation because not only was he a director, but he was part of the writing as well. And I think it's such an interesting thing because as an actor, at least for me, when I look at a script, I always think in what ways can I bring myself to this character to make it more natural and make it more real and all of that. But then at the same time, how can I do what the writers are wanting me to do? Because if it's a serial killer, I'm not going to go out and kill a bunch of people to prove that I am this role. So it was really great because we had a table read and we're able to kind of talk about it before, because some movies or sets you don't get to do that. You just have to jump in and pray. But this was really great because we were able to meet and talk about it. And yeah, it was so fun because I was able to bring a lot of the spunkiness to Jess that I hope I have in my personality. And yeah, he was really great. Anytime we had or I had any questions, or I know that there was a couple times where I was like, I want to say something different here. He was like, okay, yeah, what are your thoughts? What are we thinking? So yeah.
Now you mentioned your character Jess has cystic fibrosis. That is an extremely serious, life-threatening condition. Did you do any kind of research into people who have CF and try to get more knowledge about it?
I did. So once I found out that I booked the role, I bought a journal and I kind of just put as much information into the journal that I could, that was possible. So I was constantly researching things. And then by the time that filming came up, I just kind of shelved it. And I was like, what I know is what I know. And now I'm going into this and I can't possibly fit more into my brain and I'm not going to be able to take any out. So I did do a lot of research. I watched a few films with other actors that had actors that didn't have cystic fibrosis, but playing characters with cystic fibrosis. And it was hard as I was 18 when I filmed this and I didn't quite understand it, but yeah, learned a lot.
Awesome. Now, Lydell, I'm going to give you a chance to respond. Put the writing aside. When you are behind that camera and you are directing, what is your special approach? I've heard a lot of directors say 70% or 75% of directing is casting and just get out of the actor's way, except when they need help. What's your approach?
Okay. So my approach is a little different from most because at the time we were working in a duo. So it was my partner, Cecil, and I. And we developed a system where he would for the most part, be how do I put it? He would be the spear,
Okay.
and I would be more the spear wielder.
Okay.
And so, because what can happen with duos is, or anytime there's two people involved in something that needs to have a singular focus, is you can stagger each other if too many people are too many cooks in the kitchen.
Exactly.
So for us, we very studious people, so we'd study all the time together. We know exactly what needs to happen, for the most part, given the all the random things that reality can bring you, but we know what we want to do. We go on the day knowing exactly what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So he would be more the communicator,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be more the watchful eye.
Gotcha.
And so he would, for the most part, do the interaction with the actors. And then he'd, you know what I mean? And he'd bring it back to me. And if I saw anything that needs adjustments, hey, let's change this. It's kind of like the Coen brothers.
Yeah, it
That's-
sounds
you know
like
what I
you
mean?
guys had a
That kind of
great
thing.
system worked out.
Yeah.
Now,
And, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to ask Steve. Nowadays, you don't really see that many movies that have two directors. So, as the producer on this film, what were your thoughts? Did you have any kind of fear that there might be some clashes of ideas when it came to two people behind that camera?
Well, I actually did a movie a while back called Prisoner, and it was a similar situation. It was a pair of writer-directors. So I had a little experience working with two directors, writer-directors. And Cecil and Liddell seemed to really have their act together, kind of exactly what Liddell said. They took on different roles. And when I had to work with them, depending on what I saw, I would either address both of them, or Liddell, or Cecil if it was Cecil's watch that I was, looking to talk to him about. So, it's definitely, it could be more difficult, but it could also be easier.
Mhm.
Because, when you get a writer-director, one person, it's very hard to have a discussion with that person.
Yeah.
They have in mind what they wrote. They want to portray it a certain way on film, and they just don't really want to hear from the producer, anything different than
Yeah.
what they're looking for. But when you've got two people, you can have a three-way discussion, and it tends to be easier.
Okay, I could totally see that. Now, Pat, if you were to describe Walter and Shelley's marriage, would you say that Shelley is the one that is the dominant one? Is Walter the dominant one? Are they co-equal partners when it comes to parenting and just basic life stuff? How would you describe the marriage between Shelley and Walter? Sorry.
I mean, it seems to me like in this situation, she's, I don't know if the word dominant is the right word, but she's sort of, I don't know. She has more guts and kind of runs things. I mean, I suppose I could say I'm off earning money or something, but I'm sure he loves his wife and his kids and everything, but I think she just seems to me to be more involved. He seems to be a little bit more sort of distracted and not as involved in what's going on, and sort of gradually gets dragged more and more emotionally into the situation, escaping it at some point. But
Yes, the face.
yeah, I feel like she wears the pants. Yeah, that
Okay.
seems to be the case to me.
Now, Sarah, what was it about Shelley that really attracted you? And what is it about Shelley that you really tried to make your own?
Well, I'm gonna go back to can I just go back to address Pat?
Hmm.
He said that very eloquently, but he was always he was the lawyer in the family, so he was making money, and then Shirley was an artist who worked at home. But the chemistry was there, and I have to say we were so lucky to get Megan and Trevor. We had the best chemistry as a family. I felt really like it wasn't hard. Sometimes on set you're like, this kid, it just wasn't hard. So back to your question though. So for Shelley, for me, she starts out and she's so excited, she's giddy, she's coming into this house, this beautiful house. They moved there for their daughter, Jess, they moved there for her health. And then her dream starts to become a nightmare. And she's leaning on Walter, Scott, and she's leaning on him. And at the time, he's just like, oh my gosh, we just got here. What are you going to complain about now? And she starts getting more nervous and more nervous. And then it just kind of snowballs from there. And like Pat said, it's just too in our face that we have to deal with it as a family.
Yeah.
So, and then we bring in Dr. Clay, and then, all hell breaks loose. So for me, the character was there was a lot of arcs, and to the point where there's a couple of scenes where you don't know that Shelley's not going to start killing people.
Yeah.
I mean, she was so distraught.
Hmm. Absolutely. I think that was perfectly said. Now, this film has quite an achievement. It won Best Thriller at the Cannes Film Festival. Whether Steve or Lydell, whichever of you want to jump in, let's go with Lydell, then go to Steve. That is quite an honor. I mean, that's no small film festival. It's probably the premier, the best of the best when it comes to film festival. And it won Best Thriller there. First of all, is that accurate?
I think it was what was it, Steve? It was Con.
It's the World Con. So they have several offshoots of the Cannes Film Festival.
Okay.
One of the
But then you're also eligible to go in and
actually going to Cannes.
but they weren't having the festival, so it is a huge honor. But what they do is every quarter they usually pick a film, and we were blessed. Sorry to jump in here, but I mean I was the one submitting them, so
Exactly.
might as well. I might as well. So we won the LA Sun Film. We won quite a few awards, but the Cannes Film Festival was the biggest. You're correct. But it put us in a pool to go into the main one. So that we won, I was like, wow. And then Trevor also got Best Young Actor, and our trailer got awards. And we've done pretty good on the festival route, which is kind of interesting, John, because I wasn't even going to enter it into any festivals.
Wow.
None. I just, because we had already kind of started down the distribution path. And I was like, and then someone mentioned to me, you should go into some film festivals, and knock on wood. I mean, I don't want to be braggadocious, but we won a lot.
Yeah.
Pat won the Best Actor for the LA Sun Film Festival. The music video won awards. Megan got nominated. I mean, there was a lot of nominations. I don't even know if Megan knows she was nominated because there were so many awards that just happened at Film Quest. And I haven't even had time to talk to her about it, but there was just a lot of it was a lot of good stuff. And when you waited a year and a half to release this due to COVID, I mean the film was done. We just had to wait because we were competing against Tenet and
Wow.
huge blockbuster movies. So we sat on it a whole year and a half. We had to sit on the film, and during that time we re-edited. So I feel happy.
No, I would imagine. I mean, Steve, just all those awards, the nominations, does it just give you that reinforcing feeling that, you know what, we put something really special together and we're getting the recognition, and it just solidifies that what I thought was a good project is being recognized by other people as such.
Yeah, of course. And, I'm very proud of the whole cast and crew, and everyone worked very hard. And the script was great, and I think the film really deserved to be recognized.
It does. It's a great film. Now, Megan, after you do any role and the movie's released, whether it was The Conjuring, Not Alone, what kind of react do you are you that kind of person that tunes out fan reaction from social media, or are you intent to see what people are saying about it? What kind of reactions did you get from Not Alone when it was released? Was it mostly positive, neutral? What was that like?
Yeah, no, I definitely got a lot of positive reactions from it and everything. As for social media wise, I try to be as engaging as I possibly can because I know when I was younger, not that everybody on social media is younger, but when I was and I would be looking at people that I really looked up to and actors and everything, I loved seeing when they would engage. And I was like, wow, they really care about people that like what they're doing. So I never want to come across like I'm not incredibly thankful and grateful and super blessed to be in the position that I am. But yeah, no, I've really only got really great positive feedback from the film, and my whole family really loves it, and a lot of people that I've shared it with as well. And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's super great.
Now, Pat, having had such a successful career, is there anything left that you have not already done that you really want to do in terms of a character or a particular type of character or an overall project? Is there something that really is on your bucket list on your career?
I mean, I've done a lot, and I've worked with so many people that I'm really lucky to have worked with. So I would say that if I had to stop now for any reason, I wouldn't have any regrets. I mean, I wouldn't have any. I don't think there'd be anything like, oh, I wish I could have done that or that. And I've had this nice writing career and a directed feature and things. So having said that, you never really know. I mean, there's certain people I would really like to work with, directors and actors and other people, but you never really know until you see that thing, that's
Mhm.
like, that's what's kind of fun and magical about it, really, because like all of a sudden this wasn't even on your radar, and then there it is. It's like this thing. It's like, oh, it almost seems like it's just for you. It was made for you. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are things, but and I'm sure there will be things, but I'm super satisfied with where things are now, and you know, uh, yeah, personally and
Awesome.
professionally, yeah.
Now, let me sort of throw that question to you, Sarah. As your career progresses, do you want to do more acting or do you want to do more producing, maybe even directing? Which direction do you want to see your career go from this point forward?
Well, I can tell you, I do not want to direct. Have no desire to direct. But what I'd love to do is do both. I love to sing, and I'm going to record more songs. So that's awesome. But I would love to get a role that I actually could sing. Actually, maybe play a person like a Patsy Cline, or
Mm-hmm.
someone that's a real person, and sorry, and actually sing in a role, or even it doesn't have to be real. I mean, but that's what I'd love to do. I want to act and I like to sing. I love the creative part. And producing, yeah, that's just in my blood. I mean, I'll keep doing that.
That's awesome. Now, Lydell, when you get a rising star like Megan, all right, and you're working behind the camera and you're seeing her talent and what she can do, what thoughts go through your mind as a director? And like, do you say to yourself, "Wow, the sky's the limit for this young talented woman"? I mean, what goes through your head when you come across good young talented actors?
You have to be very careful with your answer, Lydell.
Oh, I said I got to get her IG handle right away. I got to get her to follow me. No, you just, that's, when we're going through casting, literally, literally hundreds, felt like hundreds, of
No.
people auditioned for that role.
Yep.
And, man, when you see it, you know when you see it, and you just yield to it. You submit to it, and that's why she's here.
Exactly.
She's awesome. And for me, everybody's in my mind, in my heart's become a friend, and I don't know if I could ask for more.
Did you and Steve and your writing partner, did you guys have a special system for auditioning and casting? Did they have to go through Steve first or you first, and then they get moved on?
No. They, to be honest with you, they gave us a lot of freedom in the casting.
Nice.
They even gave us freedom with Pat. I remember they mentioned Pat. They were going to give us the choice. They were very generous in that. And they mentioned Pat, and I already knew who Pat was.
Yeah.
So I hear Pat, I'm like, yo. Again, you submit. And you're like, yes, that's, please, yes. And just kind of, sometimes you just get, sometimes you just get lucky. Oh, but what was the question?
When you come across rising stars like Megan and the casting process, did it go through you and then get pushed up to Steve? Or were you all in on
they
it
gave
together?
us a ton of freedom, but we did have a casting director. We had with Rose Rosen, and so she put it out on wire. She'd go through her connections, her network, and she would just grab everybody, throw them in a bag, and deliver them to us, via links, because they're in Tampa at the time, and we're in LA, and so all this was done online. We're just going through her. I can't remember what her. We're just pretty much going through her back end and going through all the video auditions, because in the beginning it was all video submissions.
Yeah, that's how. That's how pretty much auditions and stuff are done now. We're pretty much out of time, but I do want to ask. I want to close it out with Megan. Now, Megan, moving forward in your career, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay primarily in films? Do you want to do television? What would you like to do?
Honestly, I want to do it all. Like, anytime people are like, I'm like, I don't care what I'm working on, I just want to work. But I do think that I love film in a different way than I love television. I like being able to jump around from different characters more frequently than you always get to do when you're in television. I kind of have like a small little like bucket list as an actor of things that I would like to accomplish at some point. So like one thing is I'd love to play a character with superpowers. I think that would be so dope. I'd also love to be a princess at some point because that would also be just amazing. But yeah, I wanna do more.
You like whatever it is, bring it on.
Whatever it is, yes.
That is
as long
awesome.
as the context is appropriate, yes.
That's awesome. Guys, the movie is called Not Alone. It's available on all the major transactional, for those of you that don't know, that's rent or buy, video on demand services like Amazon Prime, Apple, and whatnot. It's available for streaming on Screenbox. Check it out. It's not just another haunted house movie. Like Sarah mentioned, there is a great plot twist that Lydell and his writing partner came up with. You're not going to see it coming. Okay, we're not going to spoil anything, but you got to watch it. It's awesome. I want to thank Steve, Sarah, Pat, Megan, Lydell. You guys are amazing. This hour flew by. If I were to pick one person, let's say Sarah, Any final thoughts on the movie that you want to share before we go?
Just go and watch it. It's finally there, and you can go and enjoy it, and you'll be surprised.
Absolutely.
That's all I got.
You will be surprised. Thank you to my guests. Thank you to all our viewers who tuned in tonight, who are watching this live and will watch this later on. On behalf of me and Sarah, Steve, Pat, Megan, and Lydell, stay safe. Stay walking, guys. Good night.
Thanks,
Thank you.
John.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thanks, John.